Thanks so much for joining us here on Up with KREM. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Tim Pham. And if we haven't seen you since last year, Happy New Year.
Happy
The
New
team
Year.
is all back together today. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick standing by in the Weather Center right now, tracking the forecast for us. Thomas, yesterday was an observed holiday, so today's really, for some, the first day back to work for folks. So what's the forecast looking like?
Yeah, first day probably waking up a little bit earlier than the last couple days. And for the forecast this morning, been just keeping an eye on any kind of fog that might be developing across Spokane County. There, of course, is Airway Heights. Doesn't look too bad, and the traffic not too heavy along Highway 2, at least early on this morning. But because of the lingering moisture in the atmosphere, we are seeing that materialize in either fog, mist, or even drizzle in some locations. And of course, that would all be a freezing fog, mist, or drizzle. That has prompted winter weather advisories for these areas, including Spokane, until 10 o'clock this morning. But it is pretty marginal as we've seen it so far. Some roadways could be a little bit icy. Again, doesn't look too foggy at the moment, but that cloud cover certainly is pretty low. I have noticed this on radar. If you look really closely, it's subtle, but there are some radar returns, and that could be that freezing mist or drizzle. And if that's occurring, the road conditions can certainly be very icy very quickly. So just keep your wits about you for any changeable road conditions on your morning commute for today. For the afternoon hours, we'll keep a chance of flurries in the forecast for the afternoon, but that shouldn't be all that significant for today.
All right, at 7:02 now, we are tracking one school closing. Cusick School District closed today because of flooding issues that happened over the winter break. So we will keep you updated on any other school delays or closings here on Up with KREM and on KREM.com. Meanwhile, our big story of the morning happening today, the man arrested for the murder of 4 University of Idaho students will face a Pennsylvania judge for his extradition hearing.
And he could be in Idaho as early as tonight. So here's what we know about his arrest right now. Pennsylvania state troopers arrested 28-year-old Brian Koberger for killing all 4 students in their beds back in November. Koberger is a PhD candidate at Washington State University. Now, CBS News learned forensic analysis allegedly linked him to the crime scene at the King Road home in Moscow. He's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary. Police are still not saying whether the 4 students knew Koberger. Now, Pennsylvania State Police arrested him 2,500 miles from that Idaho crime scene, and troopers arrested him at his parents' house early Friday morning. He's been in the Monroe County Jail ever since. So like we mentioned, Koberger is scheduled to appear in Pennsylvania court at 12:30 today, where he is expected to waive his extradition hearing. But what does that mean in the overall process of getting him back to Idaho?
So KREM 2's Janelle Finch sat down with a criminal justice professor from Sacramento State University to break down what could lie ahead for the suspected Moscow murderer.
We know from our sister station in Pennsylvania, Brian Koberger is behind bars at the Monroe County Correctional Facility. Officials brought him here after he was arrested early Friday morning. And here is where he'll stay until his appearance in a Pennsylvania court Tuesday, where his attorney shared he's planning to waive his extradition hearing.
Basically, all that means is that he is not planning to fight his transport back to Idaho. So he essentially will accept that transport back to Idaho.
Dr. Danielle Slakoff, an assistant professor of criminal justice at Sacramento State University, explains what this legal phrase means and why a suspect could choose to do this.
My take on waiving that extradition hearing is that he is ready to have his day in court to see the charges against him, because they have not actually released the information that they have leading to his arrest yet. So I really take that to mean that he's ready to see what they have on him, and he is hoping to be absolved of being absolved of guilt or blame.
In addition to sharing a plan to waive extradition, this weekend, Koberger's attorney shared a statement on behalf of his client. He says, quote, Mr. Koberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible. Dr. Slakoff says the use of exonerated in the statement jumped out at her.
When someone's exonerated, generally that means they've already been convicted and sentenced. So it is an interesting choice of words by him, reportedly, that he used the word exonerated.
She says she's surprised he didn't use the word acquitted.
It's possible he could have said, I'm looking forward to being acquitted, which means being found not guilty.
In a court of law, suspects are presumed innocent until proven otherwise. And despite the noted interesting choice of words, Koberger's attorney says at this time his client also deserves that presumption of innocence.
In our More to Every Story commitment, we're bringing you more and diving deeper into what the extradition process looks like. The process is outlined actually in the U.S. Constitution under its extradition clause. In that clause, if a person is charged with a crime in one state but arrested in a different one, the original state can request the person be returned for investigation. A state can also issue an out-of-state warrant for a suspect's arrest if they believe the suspect left the state to avoid capture, which is what Moscow police did. After Pennsylvania police arrested Kohberger, a court appearance is scheduled where he can either waive or challenge the extradition. Waiving the extradition means Kohberger is voluntarily returning to Idaho to face 4 first-degree murder charges. At this point, we know he is planning to waive the hearing, according to his lawyer. However, if he decides to challenge extradition, then the Idaho and Pennsylvania governor's offices get involved. Both Idaho Governor Brad Little and Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf have to approve the extradition request. Then a Pennsylvania court must approve or deny extradition. Once Kohberger arrives in Latah County, he will be formally arrested by Idaho authorities. Then a bail hearing is set and held, followed by an arraignment, which is where he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty and begin the formal court process.
Now, of course, this continues to be a developing story, and we'll bring you more updates as we learn more. But for all of our coverage on this investigation, you can text us the word Idaho to our number 509-448-2000. We'll send you a link right to your phone with all of that information.